If you're looking for a luxury sedan and you're going to be spending most of your time in the driver's seat, chances are that you'd be looking at the BMW 5 Series. What's new in the facelift? Well, for starters, the styling's been revised. There's new headlights, there's a new grille, there's new bumpers, and around the back there's a changed diffuser section in the rear bumper and a new LED taillight signature. It keeps the 5 Series looking sufficiently fresh, and in fact, from the front, it does look significantly sharper, even though you can't put your finger on exactly why. It's when you look at the details that you realize that those headlights do resemble the new 7's headlights, and that's definitely a good thing for the 5 Series buyer. While the interiors remain largely the same, your user experience is tweaked quite a bit with the introduction of BMW's latest generation of iDrive, the iDrive 7. It also brings wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and in some markets you get the digital key feature, which lets your phone act as your car key, but the My BMW app isn't available in India to download just as yet. It's also worth pointing out that the twin 12.3-inch screens provide a massive screen real estate bump over the previous car, and for someone familiar with BMW cabins, instantly elevates the experience while staying handy just at the edge of your direct line of sight. What continues are the comfortable seats front and rear, and while the 6 GT offers a bit more knee room, reclining rear seats and a larger boot thanks to its longer wheelbase, the overall rear seat experience of the 5 Series comes pretty close. I know there's a lot of divided opinion over the size and shape of BMW's new grilles, but at least on these models, the grille doesn't seem overtly large, even though it is slightly larger. What has changed is that instead of a strip of body-colored painted surface between the two kidneys of the grille, you now have a thick chrome bar. So the grille is essentially one big piece, and it's got chrome slats, at least on these luxury line models. And it just makes it seem a lot more imposing. And at the top of the range, you've got the 530D, which is an inline 6-cylinder diesel. And as we've experienced recently in the 630D Gran Turismo, that engine really is a bomb, even if the transmission tuning isn't always up to the task of keeping it in check. With the 520D, what you do get is a very well-tuned package. Its 190 PS and 400 Nm of torque does sound pretty adequate on paper, but then it doesn't feel as urgent as this engine does in some of the smaller cars in BMW's range, just by virtue of the fact that the 5 Series at about 1.675 kg curb is a whole 135 kg heavier than the 320D. This engine is mated to an 8-speed Steptronic transmission. It's a ZF 8-speed automatic, and it doesn't have launch control, but you shouldn't worry about that because the diesel doesn't feel particularly brisk, and it's probably not up to giving you those rear-wheel drive shenanigans that you've been dreaming of in a BMW if you're that sort of a buyer. That's not to say outright performance is lacking. When you put your foot down, you are met with a nice growl from the engine, which is otherwise very silent and very refined. You do get the standard range of drive modes in the 5 Series. You've got Eco Pro, which puts the entire car in its most lazy, laid-back setting. You've got Comfort, which steps it up a notch, and Sport, though Sport Individual is actually my preferred driving mode because I can then set the dampers in Comfort and the steering in Comfort, which makes the steering just a little easier to use around the city, but keeps the powertrain as alert as I'd like it to be, which otherwise feels like you can catch it napping over speed breakers when it's set in Comfort, for example. Given that the 5 Series does have those adaptive dampers, you do have an adaptive drive mode too, which has the car adapt to your driving situation and driving styles, though I prefer a little bit more predictability when I set it in a defined drive mode. What's really easy to appreciate in the 5 Series is just how much its character changes when you put it in Sport. You do feel the steering get a little more alert, you feel the powertrain get a little more alert, and that's before you even put the gearbox in the Sport mode, which immediately makes the biggest difference. Now you may not appreciate the gearbox in sport mode in the city because it does tend to hold on to gears just a tad bit longer, but when you get to a set of twisties, trust me, you're going to want to put it in sport mode and you can actually forget about the paddle shifters unless you really want to feel in control of the car. Its performance figures do put it at the sporty end of the segment, but overall the 520D does feel a lot more relaxed than some of its more urgent powertrains. And by relaxed, I do mean that the 5 Series feels like it could have long legs to it. It's just that getting up to speed might take a little bit more persistence from you than you might expect. But in terms of its mile munching capabilities, the 5 Series diesel definitely has the legs to go the distance. And one of the reasons why it remains so comfortable as a highway machine is the amazing ride quality. Considering that this is the luxury line model, it's a bit of a surprise that BMW slapped on 18-inch wheels with relatively low profile tires. 45 sections are a little worrisome for our road conditions, but if you can be careful, the car looks fabulous with this wheel and tire package on it. Now the 5 Series isn't fitted with air suspension, but the standard BMW setup of a 5-link axle up front and a multi-link at the rear really does work very well. It gives the 5 Series the kind of compliance that you would expect from an air setup, but without the potential downside of thudding over speed breakers and maybe that slightly extra rebound that you get over speed breakers like we saw in the 6 Series GT, which does have air suspension as standard. Speaking of control, body movements are well kept in check, even in comfort. But if you're the type of buyer who does like to hustle his car every now and then, Sport is definitely going to be your favorite mode. There's great modulation from the brakes as well, and outright braking performance is quite impressive for something that weighs nearly 1.7 tons. But once again, the 5 Series just feels a lot more tied down than the 6. And that's largely due to the fact that you aren't sitting that high up, and the ride actually feels comparable to the air-sprung 6 GT in a lot of situations, and it definitely betters it in terms of overall body control. There you have it. The 5 Series understandably is the pick if driving yourself is a priority, but is comfortable enough to serve well even if you're in the rear seat, while the updates bring it just a little closer to the cachet of the 7 Series, at least from the outside. And like we said, that's always a good thing.